Now, I'm going to bring a great man onto this platform to have a little chat with us. Now, before I read a little write up about him, I was fortunate to actually step into the breakout room where he was actually given advice and mentoring a young lady right there on accountancy. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to hear from this man. So here is his profile. I'm going to be talking about Ayo Akinmade, is passionate about helping young entrepreneurs. Ayo Akinmade has over two
You want
decades.
another berry?
Please, can everybody mute themselves, please? Thank you. I'll start again. Ayo Akinmade has over 2 decades of investment experience in West African market, managing business interest across e-commerce, oil and gas, IT and financial advisory services. He is the executive vice chairman of Regos in Nigeria. He has held this position since November 2016 when he merged his successful Regos franchise operations with the globally acclaimed leaders in virtual office services. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ayo Akinmade onto this platform. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Firstly, can I say welcome to all the participants. I have been listening intently. Olabelo, I didn't realize that you were actually listening into me in the breakout session, but that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm going to be speaking about today. When Morenike said to me to have a talk, I thought, what should I talk about? And instinctively, I came to what I normally do all the time, career. And it's interesting that the title, the working title for this group is Career Nuggets. So I want to talk about careers. If you think about it, your career is essentially the totality of your life's work experience. Most of us, especially from the extraction we come from when we are age 6, 10, 12, someone says to you, what are you going to be when you get older? I'm going to be an accountant. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be, and of course, in those days when I was growing up, no one said they were going to be a musician or a footballer. It will be what? No chance. So from a very early age, you were essentially almost defining your career progression, even at that point in time. I think I see there's almost 200 participants here now. If we were to take a census of how many people actually then did what they said they were going to do when they were young, I would be shocked if we had 10 to 15% of the people in this virtual event who would be doing right now what they said they were going to do when they're young. My point is this: life happens. Life and chance align. Things, adulthood gets in the way. For me, for example, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I was very set on the fact that I was going to be a doctor. At GCE level, I took all science subjects, and then I happened on an accident, a ghastly accident on the way from Abeokuta to Ibadan. And I saw dismembered bodies on the road. And the first thing that occurred to me was, I don't think I'll be able to handle blood. And it's going to be very difficult for a doctor that isn't going to be able to handle blood. For some other people, it would be maybe the GCSE grades or GCE grades or AS as they have it now, grades don't align with what they're planning to do. Or they don't get a placement into the university of their choice for the course that they want, and they don't want to wait. So you take what comes along. But I want to talk today about thinking about career as a project. So if we say that from day one, we define that our life's work will be a project that we will project manage through our life, then we might begin to have a structure to this process. So let's think about it and say, my career first is a defined project that I'm taking from point A to when I retire. How? What steps will I need to take? Who should I be talking to? What courses should I study? And so on and so forth. And by the way, you can be doing this exercise today. It doesn't have to be that, oh, I didn't do it when I was 25 or when I was 30. One of the sayings that I use a lot is the sayings that the Igbos have. For those who are not Nigerians, the Igbos are a tribe in the eastern part of Nigeria, and their saying essentially translates to, whenever you wake up, that's when your morning starts. So some people wake up at 5 a.m. and their morning has started. Some people wake up at 11 a.m. and their morning has started. What you need to do is start your morning. It doesn't matter when it starts, but you take it from when you start and then you make something of it. Let me go back to this idea of a career being a project. For a successful project, you need to define as a starting point, what is the objective of my project? So what do I want to achieve? I recall in the 90s, a famous politician, Michael Heseltine, now Lord Heseltine. He ran for prime ministership against Margaret Thatcher at the time. And one of the things that struck me was that apparently when he was in university, he had defined in decades where he was expecting to go, on a decade by decade basis. He would be successful in business in the 20s, and in the 30s, he would be an MP, and in the 40s, he would be a Secretary of State, and in the 50s, he would be Prime Minister. He had it defined by decades, and he went through the steps. The only one he missed was he didn't become Prime Minister. But the point that I make is, first, you have to define your goal. And for every successful project, once you've defined your goal, then you define the steps that will take you to your goal. In defining the steps that will take you to your goal, you need to attach a time to it. So there isn't a point, for example, saying, I want to be rich, if you don't define the how, and if you don't define the when. By the way, nothing in what you define says it will happen, as we've all found out in 2020. I recall all of us having strategic retreats in 2019. This is what we're going to do in 2020. And we all know what has happened, this year. But those people who define a course of journey, those people who define where they're going, tend to be more successful getting there than those people that just wait for a chance to take them wherever it may. So define the objective, define the steps that you will need to achieve those objectives, then define the resources that you would need to attach to those tasks to get you to your objectives. Set milestones. With the milestones comes a way of measuring how you're going to get to those objectives. So continuous measuring, continuous assessment becomes the key to realigning, re-strategizing, refocusing on objectives, sometimes even changing the objective, changing the destination. Because I tell another story. If you, for example, say you are going from London and you're heading to Birmingham on the M40, and you've been in traffic for 2 hours, and then someone calls you and says, oh, but the meeting is actually in Southampton. But you then say, but I spent 2 hours on this journey, so I'm not going to turn back. Guess what? You're not getting to the destination anyway. So sometimes the reality of life and in the continuous assessment that you do, you might have to make the hard decision to change your strategic goal, change your objective, change what you thought you were going to do, and then realign to make a success of where you are at, what you are doing, how you are doing it. The key for me when I speak to people, and I spend typically 25-30% of my time every week mentoring people and talking to people. The key that I say to people is you have to be disciplined. You have to be absolutely focused about assessing where you are at. You need to be unemotional about it. You need to find people that will help you on that journey. And I absolutely align with what Kenny said and what Morenka said before. If you don't have a mentor, it is critically important you find yourself a mentor. Now, a mentor isn't always somebody that is ahead of you. It isn't always an expert in a particular field. Sometimes a mentor is your contemporary. Sometimes a mentor can even be someone younger than you. A mentor is someone that is your recharge point. A mentor is someone that when you go to and you talk to the person, when you finish the talk, you feel recharged, you feel energized, you go again. So one of the critical things that you must do, and I think it's been emphasized before now, you have to find positive people that you trust their judgment, that will take you along your life's journey. You need to listen to them and take in what they say. And I shouldn't, maybe it's self-evident from the testimonials and from what you've heard today. Career Nuggets is an obvious example of where you can find people that will take you on this journey. Let me complete the loop on the project management analogy. For every project, there is a review point. The review point is formal. It is set against milestones. At the milestone point, there is a formal review point where you say, what did we expect to have achieved at this point? And have we achieved it? And if we haven't achieved it, why not? Incidentally, we might even have overachieved what we thought we were going to achieve. And if we have overachieved as well, how come? How can we, replicate more and more of what we have done if, in fact, we have overachieved? If it is by providence, if it is just by chance, then we pray for more chance events of the like. But the key is that we have to stop and evaluate. Now, for me, I don't believe in birthday parties. I don't believe in having festivities on my birthday. I use my birthday as my own annual review point. And I have a very structured formatting around what I do. The structured formatting, for those people who are accountants, I think Ayola was talking about this. For those people who are accountants or those people that are used to spreadsheets, imagine you have a spreadsheet And the spreadsheet has 3 rows and 3 columns. And on the columns, you have from today to 6 months. The second column, 6 months to 24 months. The third column, greater than 24 months. So those are your columns. For your rows, I have a top line, which is personal objectives, personal relationships, relations between your husband and wife, relationship between family, and so on and so forth. First row. The second row, I label business or work. So for me, that's both. So I am both an entrepreneur, I'm an investor. When I was working, I also ran businesses both in the UK and in Nigeria. And the third row would be a column that I call other. And under other, I would put hobbies, bucket list items, and the likes. Now, imagine, if you will, this spreadsheet. It has 9 boxes because you have 3 rows and 3 columns. In each of those boxes, I would have put from last year just one objective that I wanted to achieve. And that one objective, I would then break into the specific steps that I need to achieve it. For the 6 months personal goal, what is it? What do I need to do? Not just what do I need to do, when do I need to do it by? Who do I need to get involved in this project for me to achieve it? When my birthday comes, rather than have a bash, what I do is bring out my last year's project. Of course, I've had continuous reviews during the year, but this is my own formal review, where I then go back to those objectives and reset it. Reset my 6 months objective, set my 2-year objective or less than 2-year objective, and reset my greater than 2-year objective. When I take on a new mentee, this grid is the first thing that we spend sometimes 4 or 5 hours talking about. And it is deliberate that the first row is personal, because I am clear that if your personal life is not properly settled, there's hardly anything that you will achieve business-wise. There's hardly anything else that will go right. Even if it goes right, it is just by chance, and your personal life, if it goes negative, will almost certainly affect all of those boxes. So I spend a lot of time talking about what kind of realistic personal goals you have. The first thing that I do, is it Ola Belu or Ola Bella? But anyway, if you were overhearing what I was saying to the lady I was talking to, who had lost a job, and she was saying she was hoping to get into another job. The first question I asked her is, why? Why are you not thinking of being an employer? And this is something that I challenge everyone to do. It is critically important to consider, if you have the temperament and you have the idea, to consider being an employer. An employer is obligated to pay just enough to his employees to get them to do what he requires of them and to keep the rest. Why don't you want to be the person keeping the rest? And unless you don't have the temperament, my instinctive view is think about being an employer. Now, if you're not going to be an employer and you're going to be an employee, think about being the best employee that you can be in the company that you are in. And by the way, there's nothing that says that if you're unhappy about your station in life, you shouldn't change it. In fact, it is imperative. It is so imperative that you make steps to change what you don't like, because there's nothing that is assured in life. There are people that slept yesterday and didn't wake up this morning. And there are people that will sleep this morning that won't wake up tomorrow. And so, in as much as we plan ahead, one of the things that I am absolutely certain about is we must live the present as if there isn't a future. Not wastefully and recklessly because we don't believe there's a future. But there might be a future, but we might not be present. So it is critically important to me. I promised Marenke that I'll only spend 15 minutes because I would love to take questions. I thrive like Kenny. I feel constrained that I'm sitting down. I'm more a pacing up and down, gesticulating kind of person. And when I do talks, this is something that I thrive on. But we're in the new reality, and this is what we're faced with. Let me leave you with some few nuggets, if we can use that word. You only live once. YOLO, you only live once. That says you must find what makes you happy, work-wise, and you must be doing it. If you are not doing it, you must be making your way to doing it. It is critically important that you make your way towards doing what makes you happy. Secondly, you must never be afraid of the word no. So one of the things that we find, especially when I mention, and this is not to be sexist, it is in the nature of men generally to be more accepting of no's than women. But every no is a step towards a yes, and you must embrace your no's. You must understand why you get a no. You must analyze it, but you must never be discouraged with a no. The no isn't even a permanent no, because it might be a no because of the person's circumstance at that point in time. It might be a no because they didn't understand the proposition that you were making to them. It might be a no to that person because they are short-sighted and they couldn't see your vision, but it doesn't mean that it won't be a no to someone else. So I personally love no's and rejections. I want to understand the why, but I almost take it as a check box. Every no is one extra step towards my yes. So I have no qualms at all about the no's. Thirdly, be deliberately intentional. Deliberately intentional about the steps you're taking in your career. I love what Kenny said about his step to find a mentor. You have to first do an audit. Sort of apologies. I trained with Pricewaterhouse. We think audits and processes, but you have to audit where you are at and be brutally honest with what your limitations are. And then you have to say, from where I am, where do I need to go? How do I need to get there? And be deliberately intentional about the steps you need. One of the things that people don't understand is that you can approach someone you don't know, someone that doesn't know you, and send him a nice note saying, or her a nice note saying, you are my mentor, or you're a potential mentor to me. I like your work in this area. I have followed your work, and I'd love for us to spend 10 minutes chatting. 9 of every 10 successful person is always happy to share the roots of their success with others. I don't believe that I know of a successful person that has been nicely approached by someone they never knew with, could you please share your insight into this area? And they say no. So be very clear that first, in doing your audit, identify who you think is going to take you to where you're going, and then approach them. Now, maybe the one of the 10 that in my rough statistic is that person that says no, but then that's just embrace the no. Go to somebody else. It can't be the case that it is only one person that can help you achieve your objective. Correct? So let me restate it. Can I ask everyone here that's listening to intentionally set in their minds today that they will audit where they are at. Audit where they are at in their lives, in their businesses, in other interests that they have, and set specific goals over the horizons that I specified or some other one that suits them. And then they specifically and intentionally, like it is a project, go about trying to achieve it and self-audit the process and continuously monitor it, continue to go back to it. I promise you, if you do it, and if you do it every year, when we come to the next Career Nuggets annual soiree next year, you will be telling stories of how this has helped. You will be telling stories of how this has advanced you significantly. But it is that being intentional, being very intentional about what you're trying to achieve in your career that will move you forward. I want to stop here because, as I said, I promised to spend very little time. If you leave me to it, I'll talk all night long. So I'm happy to take any questions. I'm on LinkedIn. I can be reached via Career Nuggets, as I have volunteered to be a mentor on their platform. So thank you so much for giving me this time to talk to you, and have a nice evening.
Thank you so